Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We may have a smaller group today because of the...
Good morning.
Let me slow down our music here. So this is our September 6th, 2020 Adult Bible Study, Boulder City United Methodist Church. It's 9 a.m. Pacific, and welcome to all those who are here. And I will stop the share and get to see everybody. So hope everybody had a good week, stayed safe, stayed healthy, and all that. So we're glad to see everybody. Hi, Rick, you're coming on. I see that. That's great. And we got Toddy, Susan, Jen, Lee with her dog. At least that's the picture that's showing. Now we see the rest of Lee. Sharon and Sherry and Toddy. And that's who we have so far. And Pat's here with me. And Louie.
Louie always comes to church.
So we'll get right started with our prayer. And then we got some stuff I want to talk about before the video starts. So let us pray. God of Sinai, we are in awe of your power and your might. Guide us today in our exploration, that we may be faithful and true to your covenant with us. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. And I just saw Kimberly come on. She's connecting. That's great.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Okay, good.
Okay, so last we left Moses and the Israelites, they were being saved from Pharaoh's army by parting of the Reed Sea and escaping, and then having the sea come in, or at least get all the chariot wheels stuck in the mud, and they were saved. So what happened? What happened after that? They're on their way to Mount Sinai, wherever that is, and we'll talk about more of that as we go along today. But what happened? How long did it take them before they started complaining?
Not long.
And so what was the first thing they found that helped them? These are somewhat rhetorical. I don't necessarily need all answers. These are things to think about as we watch the video. If you happen to watch his sermon on the Ten Commandments, there were a lot more to the sermon than in the video. The video is very short this week. So think about that. Think about how they got food, how they got water, how Moses made sure Moses and God made sure they got water and food. And then think about the Ten Commandments. How many, without looking at a reference, can name the Ten Commandments? Anybody? You don't have to do it now. Just think about, do you know all 10? Pat and I were talking about that yesterday and concluded that the trouble of trying to remember the Ten Commandments is when you try to remember too much of the Ten Commandments. I found it was much easier to remember the 10 if I think about 3 words, like one God. That's 2 words. Or maybe only one God. Might be a better way to say 3 words of the first one. That's using the Methodist version anyway. The Catholics do it a little bit different, but others.
Because we were late, so they've already started.
It's okay. We started right at 9 o'clock. So think about that. We're going to talk more about the 10 Commandments. But also, Adam's going to talk about being challenged by the Ten Commandments. So think about which one of the Ten Commandments you're challenged by. Presuming it's only one or maybe two, or maybe it's more than one or two. So think about that as we go through the video. Some other questions to prepare for the video. Why do you think the Israelites complained so much after God freed them from slavery? What did they learn, and what do we learn from observing them? And why do you think Adam felt it's so important to pray on his hike up Mount Sinai? And if you had been there, what would you have prayed for? And here's an extra bonus question. Which commandment did Adam say he forgot as he was preparing for his sermon on the Ten Commandments? And then we're also think about Mount Sinai. We're going to have a little discussion. We had some extracurricular work over the week about where is Mount Sinai, and we had some discussion going on via email, and we want to talk a little bit about Mount Sinai, where it is, where it may be, and does it really matter? So with all that preface, let me get to the right screen here and set up the video and get that going.
That's where you usually sit?
No, I'm in the office.
And if everybody, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody because when I start the video, there's a problem when everybody's talking on the video. So let me see if I can, there it is. If you need to talk for any reason, go ahead and unmute yourself. But right now I'm muting everybody. Other than me, because you won't hear the video if I do that. And we're getting to the right screen. It's about a 5-step process to open this up. Even though I had it all open, ready to go, it's still a 5-step process every time.
So the Israelites passed through the waters, and when they reached the other side, they watched the waters collapse over Pharaoh's armies, and they began to sing unto the Lord, for he had triumphed gloriously. The horse and rider fell into the sea. This is what the people sang as they left that place. And Moses says, we're going to the mountain of God. We're going to Mount Sinai, the place where I met God and heard God's call for me to come and deliver you and take you to a promised land. And so they begin this journey, and they journey for 3 days. And yet during this journey in the desert, they're actually following the Suez, what's today the Suez Canal. And to their right, they can see the water and the mountains on the other side and a vast desert before them. And after 3 days' journey, they've been unable to find water, no oases. And they finally come to this place. They see trees and they begin to rejoice undoubtedly. And this would have been the place they would have stopped at this oasis. This is Mara. And as they stopped, they found that there was water there. So they found the water was bitter at Mara. They couldn't drink it. And so God showed Moses a stick and told him to cast the stick into the water. And when he did, the water became sweet. And the Israelites were able to drink from that water and be nourished. And then we read these words in Scripture. There the Lord made a decree and a law for them, and there he tested them. He said, if you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. From this place, they left and they continued on their journey through the wilderness, through the desert, until they came to the town of Elim. And that's where the next story in Scripture unfolds, where we find that God provides for the people manna to eat and quail to eat so that they're sustained and nourished for their journey. And at Elim, they began to complain to Moses, saying, we don't have enough to eat. And if we'd stayed in Egypt, at least we would have had plenty to eat, fruits and vegetables and flesh pots to eat. We have nothing here. And as they complained to Moses, Moses went to God and laid this before God. And God said, I'll feed the people. I'll feed them myself. I want them to go out in the morning. They're going to find dew on the plants. And that dew that they find on the ground, they can take and they can grind it up. They can knead it together and they can form bread that they can eat. When Moses shared this with them and they saw this dew, this white substance on the ground, they asked, what is this? And the Hebrew word for what is this? Manna. And so they took this manna and they began to prepare from it food to eat. It tasted like honey wafers. And this would sustain them for the next 40 years. And God also brought to them in the evening a flock of quail that they were able to eat. This happened at Elim. And after this, from this time forward, they would continue to be sustained by the food that God would provide for them in the wilderness. And by the way, there are quail flocks that still are found in the Sinai to this day. So they're going to continue their journey towards Mount Sinai. We're going to continue that journey as well. Let's make our way to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. And so we begin the journey up Mount Sinai. In the background, you can see behind me St. Catherine's Monastery. And it's traditional. Many people will get up early in the morning, like 1 in the morning, to hike up the mountain so they can watch the sunrise. We chose to get up a little bit later, but still in time to be able to see the sun rising over the mountains. And this mountain, which is described in the Scriptures as the mountain of God, is where God came to meet his people. Moses ascended the mountain, and as he ascended the mountain, there was dark clouds and lightning and thunder. It was terrifying to the people who were left in the valley. And Moses came here and had his direct encounter with God. And so as pilgrims come here, their hope is to walk up this mountain and also have an encounter with God. So this morning, it's pretty cold. We got up before the sun was out, and it's about 25 degrees out today. The sun is coming out, and it's just awesome. It's magnificent. And as I awoke today, I was praying, God, please let me meet you as Moses met you on the mountain. And my prayer has been for those watching this video, that you might meet God on this mountain as well. Let's continue up the mountain. So Moses finally makes it to the top of Mount Sinai. I want to show you what it looks like from the top of Mount Sinai. Take a look at this. Breathtaking. Mountains all around. And God meets Moses there on the top of the mountain. And he says to them, if these people will obey my commandments, I will be their God, and they will be my people. And what were those commandments? Well, principal among them were the 10 commandments that God etched in stone tablets, not unlike this piece of stone that I found on the side of the mountain. And those 10 commandments, you'll remember, include these. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth below, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I am the Lord your God. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, not your neighbor's wife, or manservant or maidservant, their ox or their donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. With these 10 commandments, Moses eventually makes his way back down the mountain. As we were coming down Mount Sinai, I found this cleft in the rock, and it reminded me of what you read in Exodus chapter 33, verse 18, where Moses says, now show me your glory, God. And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, Yahweh, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But, the Lord said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. And then the Lord said, there is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I pass by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face you must not see. And as I stand here, I'm reminded of that, the cleft in the rock in which we're hidden, and the glory of the Lord passes by so that Moses is protected and he sees his glory, the trail of his glory as it passes by. Let's continue down the mountain. And here's what I don't want to miss. You know, I'm filming this with you and for you, but I don't want to be here on Mount Sinai and not actually have an opportunity to pray and to meet God. And the God that we believe in and worship encounters his people. God is personal and wishes to meet us and wishes for us to meet him. And so when people come to the top of Mount Sinai, part of the reason why they do it, it's not just to see the beauty. It's to actually come to the mountain of God. And in Scripture, this is the mountain of God. The ancient people, many of them believed that the gods lived on the mountains. Well, God came down from heaven, the Scripture says, to come to this mountain. It was the place where he encountered his people, encountered Moses. And so I want you to remember that. But I'm going to stop for just a few moments. And I want to pray, and I want to remember that, and invite God to lead me and to guide me. And that's my hope and prayer for you, is that by doing this study of Moses, that you might also find yourself saying, here I am, Lord, use me, guide me, lead me, help me to be obedient to you, help me to follow you, help me to be the person that you want me to be. That's my prayer today, as I'm praying on Mount Sinai.
Okay, what do you think? You'll have to unmute yourself to talk. Any
That was
thoughts?
short.
It was short. That's why I'm always suggesting watch the sermon. The sermon runs about 30 minutes, 35 minutes when you count the opening readings and the prayer and that kind of stuff. The sermon has a lot more information in it. The book has a lot of information in it as well. So if you haven't read the chapter, I'd suggest you go back and read the chapter to catch up. All the sermons are available on those notes that I said, or just go to their website. So let's go back to the questions. Why do you think the Israelis complained so much after God had freed them from slavery?
My wife said that life was hard.
Life was hard. What else?
They're living in the now. They're living 5 minutes at a time through each day. That's hot and long and dry, and it's a challenge.
And maybe not yet
They were
trusting
afraid.
God. Yeah, afraid. Not trusting God yet.
You know, they're still pretty new.
And
They say was over 1 million, right? I hear everything from 1 million to 3 million people. And you got to think that when God allowed or freed the Israelites or the Hebrews from Pharaoh, Moses didn't go and talk to each and every one and explain what was going on. Most of the people just went because their people were evicted. So they knew very little about God, probably.
Well, even today, people have a tendency to complain. It's just, unfortunately, part of human nature.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Mhm.
It's human nature to complain. If it's different, if it's difficult, people are going to complain. And if you have 1 million or more people, there's going to at least be one complainer in the group, right?
Probably two.
Yeah, too.
And that then spreads to 4, and then 8, and then to 64, right? Metric for
Hello.
complainers.
You're getting mathematic here.
They may not have learned yet how to carry water with them or enough water with them, not knowing when the next water was going to show up.
Yep.
They were very early in their trip. A lot of things about traveling in the desert with God they had yet to learn.
And I think it said that it took them 3 months to reach the mountain. That's a long time in the desert.
Yeah, Adam had a little quicker trip.
Yeah.
I think they were like the kids in the car. Are we there yet?
Exactly.
Well, and when you look at it, here we are ready to complain about having to wear a face mask. You know, it does seem to be a bit in the nature, and apparently as Americans, we're worse than the rest of the world in terms of complainers.
I'm not so sure about that. We're any different than other parts of the world. Human nature is very, as Susan said, very much the same around the world.
But the others seem to be much more compliant than we are.
Because we're used to our freedoms, right?
Although Melbourne just went batshit crazy.
Mute that guy. Mute that guy.
Well, we're gonna have to take away your privileges there. Okay, well, it is an adult program, so we'll try to keep our language to Christian adults, or maybe that's probably the wrong way to put that too. Anyway, let's go on to the next question. What do we learn from observing the Israelites and their struggles during this period?
What not to do.
Okay. How about the Scout motto? Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Be
And I
prepared.
I think trust, like Rick said, trust comes in today for us because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So trust plays a huge part of following God. More so maybe back then when they didn't know him, but even today, we have to trust that tomorrow will be a day that we can live for him, but we don't know.
Okay, there's some faith going on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the grace of God. Shifting gears slightly, why do you think Adam felt it was important to pray on his hike up and down Mount Sinai? Why do you think it was so important to stop and pray?
Well, he was in a holy area, just like I felt when I was in Israel, to take moments to just pray because of being a part of something that was, or at least to experience the same area for the most part that occurred a couple thousand years ago.
Okay, was that any different than being anywhere else?
Well, no, but I don't know, I just felt it was a feeling, I guess I should say, when I was in Israel.
Yeah, it definitely has to do with where you are and the significance of where you are.
Oh.
I mean, I pray a lot in the deserts around Boulder City when I'm out walking because I love it so much. But if I went to Mount Sinai, I would go there with the intent of spending some serious time in worship and praying because of the significance of that mountain.
But I think you can also do the same thing here. As you said, Rick, when you're out for your walk, when you're out in the desert, when you're up on one of our hills, when you look out at the lake or look up at our small little mountains around, or look at I think you can see God in any of these, and remember to take time to do that. It's not just a photo adventure.
Mm.
Okay, so if you had been there, what would you have prayed for?
World peace.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, peace.
Cures,
Hmm.
vaccines.
Yeah, that too.
Tolerance.
Tolerance. Good one, Jen.
Yep. Okay. So what commandment did Adam miss when he was trying to remember them all the night before he gave his sermon?
I don't remember.
Did anybody else watch the sermon?
I didn't watch the sermon, so I hadn't heard.
Okay. Well, anybody want to take a guess which one he missed? Which one couldn't he remember until he got his Bible and looked again? Anybody have any thoughts of which one of
I can't imagine.
which one of the 10 he might forget?
Don't covet?
Okay.
Don't covet, maybe?
Covet's an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yeah, that's appropriate today.
All right, I won't belabor any longer. He forgot thou shalt not steal, or don't steal.
Huh.
Okay. All right.
He said he got through them all. He just couldn't. He knew he got to 9 and said, "What did I miss?" And so anyway, that is an enticement to try to watch his video of his sermon, because there's more information and more interesting things and more stories, some of which are in the book and some of which aren't. Okay, moving along with the 10 Commandments. I did a little, as I usually try to do, had a little fun with looking for artwork. And I did find, let me find the right screen here to share. Give me a moment, I'll find the right screen I want to share. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, by the way, this is the lineup of his website for this series on Moses, and this was the weeks he did in 2016. And this is some of the artwork on the 10 Commandments that I thought was particularly interesting.
Wow.
There is a lot of art. I like the old masters when I'm looking for artwork like this, so that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So interesting anecdote. I always thought it was a joke from the movie on the what is
History of the World.
The movie of the Mel Brooks movie on was it History of the World?
History of the World, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I always thought it was a joke when Moses dropped the tablets.
He only dropped one. He said, I bring you 30 commandments, and then he drops one, or no,
15.
20, something like that. But then he said,
15.
and then changed it to 10.
15.
Right, yeah, 15.
There's 15 commandments, and oops, it's 10. No, but did that happen in the Bible?
No.
No,
Doesn't he smash them when he gets mad?
He gets mad. Yes.
he gets
Yes.
mad at the Israelites for when he comes down from the mountain with the tablets. This is after, it wasn't when he came down the first time.
Right.
The tablets, from what else I can understand it, it's not till Exodus 30 that, or so that he,
What happens is he's with God, and his brother Aaron decides, well, let's build a calf. And so when he comes down after that, he's mad.
Yeah.
oh, he throws him down, and he throws him down. It's Exodus 32.
Yeah.
When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it.
Yeah.
Let me stop the share on this for now. That was 32, Exodus 32:19. I found that only because I was reading Exodus 34 about the new stone tablets,
Mm-hmm.
and it said God told Moses to chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. He commanded him to make them because he had broken the other ones. I said, wow. So I had gone back and had to do a little research to find that passage because somehow I'd read right over it, or had forgotten about it. In any case, I thought that was particularly interesting. It's interesting how the movies pick up parts of stories and change them a little bit to make them the story they want to tell. But I just thought that was interesting that that actually did happen. So what are the 10 Commandments? Not what are the names of them, but or what are the words, but what are they?
Exodus 20.
No, but
They're
okay.
directions. They're directions on how to live.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think they're effective because they're in the negative?
That's why they are in the negative, to make sure you absolutely do not do those things. In the Hebrew, it's lo is the thing that negates them. Lo, lo. I'd have to get my Hebrew Bible to read them to you if you want me to.
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Maybe in one of your sermons.
One of my sermons.
On the 10 Commandments, since you're doing that series. Good timing on our Moses and your sermon series. So they're maybe more, they're laws to live by, right? They're not the top of the top laws.
Well, the Torah literally means living instructions. And as I'll say in my sermon today, it's not so much rules to live by, but who are the kind of people we ought to be to have these in our lives to live for ourselves and for God. I think that's how I put it. That's a quote from the book.
Okay.
But they're supposed to shape us into a people, because the Israelites are supposed to be a witness to the world.
And so you can say that by living this way, they would be so different from all the other peoples.
Exactly.
If they live that way.
If they live that way, right.
Okay, what did you think about the way Adam continues to relate the Old Testament and the New Testament? How he'll point out certain parts of the Ten Commandments, for example, and then what did Jesus say? Any thoughts on those analogies that he uses?
Well, Jesus gives us the 2 commandments To love your Lord, the God, with all your heart, and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Mhm.
He sort of boils it down to those two.
Right.
Right. Because he was trying to be tricked, remember? They were the,
Which one should you obey? Yeah.
yeah, what's the most important?
Yeah.
He was supposed to answer, they're all important, right? But he didn't do that. He said, if you can't remember all 10, at least remember these two, because on the whole law is based.
Yeah.
But when they asked him that question, were they asking him specifically about which one of the 10 commandments or which one of the commandments in the Torah? Because now you're talking 613.
Yeah, right.
Right. Which actually was the answer to the question I was about ready to ask, which is, what did Moses do after he received the 10 commandments?
Went back up and got some more.
Went back up and got another 621. I'm sure the Israelites say, oh, stop going to the mountain. You're killing us.
Yeah.
So speaking of the mountain, where is the mountain? So Adam goes through a whole series of possibilities and discussions of where Mount Sinai is, and finally decides, at least for the purposes of the book, he'll assume Mount Sinai is in the
Southern part of the peninsula.
yeah. So if you look at the Sinai Desert and the section of Egypt that's called the Sinai, in the book it's got some pictures of that area, and he talks about Midian being on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba,
Right.
which is on the Saudi Arabia side now, and Jordan, the western edge of Jordan, southwestern edge of Jordan, and the north western edge against the Gulf of Aqaba, which is labeled as Midian. But the comment was made that the Midians roamed the whole area, and probably they believe that might have been actually ruled on the west side of the Gulf, not just the east side of the Gulf. And so there was one of the taller mountains, Jebel Musa, is on the Sinai side, but on the other side is another high mountain, which is actually higher. It's 20. Well, I'm sorry, it's not higher. It's 25,000.
No.
2,540 meters high compared to 2,642, which is actually what they're calling Mount Catherine. What they think is Mount Sinai is actually one of the three peaks that are together. So on that eastern mountain, it's called Jabal at I'm having trouble reading it. Lawz, Lawz.
Okay.
And there's a book. Actually, I found 3 books that have been at least 3 books that are talking about Mount Sinai. And there was a New York Times article that Michael found and sent out. It was Susan that started the query, and I'm going to let Susan talk here in a minute of her thoughts on this whole thing. But anyway, it talked about two well-to-do gold seekers, if you will, who snuck into Saudi Arabia, found the Saudi Arabia secret base and with this mountain. It sounds something right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but
it's like Area 51 in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. So in any case, there's a book called The Gold of Exodus by Howard Bloom that talks about how Williams and Cornuke said they found Mount Sinai over there in Saudi Arabia at the Jabal al 8,000 foot mountain. So Susan, since you started all this this discussion, do you want to talk about your thoughts on this?
It just makes sense. I have not yet. I ordered the whole video, but it has but it has not come yet, so I can't remember all the details. But from what I remember, it just makes sense that Moses, when he was fleeing from Egypt, went to Midian, and he was in Midian, and when he would go up to the mountain, where he met, and that's where he met God, was in Midian. It just makes sense. That's one reason, and then another is that it's with this. When you see things with your eyes, it just makes the proof so much more cemented in your brain that it just has. I mean, what they call Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula, it's just a mountain, but it doesn't have all the things that Cornuke and Williams found. They went with the Cornuke as an investigator. He was a police investigator. So he did it very categorically, and I have trouble speaking, so please be patient. And so he just went through this list of things that they were looking for, and it was just right there. And so they had just the three people, the Cornuke, Williams, and the cameraman. And so they got in and did all the things, and because this obviously is a Muslim country and they don't want Christians in there, they've got it all fenced off and protected by police, their military. So they really had to sneak into the country, and so it's understandable that it's not a documented big thing like Ten Commandments. It's not some special big documentary. It just makes sense. I personally am convinced that that's where it is.
So the article in the New York Times is January 24th, 1998, which talks about the book and talks about them. There was an interesting quote: "Archaeology is not out to prove the Bible," according to a editor of a biblical archaeology review, Herschel Shanks.
Herschel Shanks, yeah, he's generally a leading figure in biblical archaeology.
Yeah. My study Bible, cultural background study Bible, actually had a couple pages on Mount Sinai, where it was, all the different discussions and things. This I can't remember what year this book came out. It's a little bit older. Oh, I'm sorry. This version was 2016, I think. So it's not that old. Yeah. But anyway, it talks about different things. Adam says, assuming, just assuming that's where it is. He says there's obviously a lot of discussion and controversy. But let's go back to Moses. I mean, we're not sure when Moses lived. We're not sure where he actually was born. There's some, there's some people saying, well, maybe Moses just made up. It's just folklore. So the issue here is somewhere, I mean, assuming that the lore is true and there was a Moses and these kind of things happened, or at least they happened in general, the fact that he went to the mountain and got the word of God and brought it back, and we have these commandments to live by, is probably what's the most important thing to focus on. Exactly where it occurred, I think, is interesting, but it's probably not, just like anything else, we're not really sure exactly where Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount. We think we might know where it is, but 2,000, 1,500 years later.
Here's the case that in about 325, that's when Constantine finally solidified his control over the Roman Empire. And Constantine's mother was a Christian, I think maybe even before he was. But she had the ability to travel to the Holy Land, and she basically went there and she wanted to find out, where did all this stuff happen? And so when she asked the locals, they said, well, look over there. And then, okay, let's build a church over there. And that happened all around in that area, including where St. Catherine, the monastery, is right now. Just to add other fuel, so to speak, for the argument or the fire, Helen supposedly found the cross as well and took shavings from the cross with her back home. But really, a lot of stuff we would not know, even the general area, if it weren't for her going to find out these areas.
I forgot one important thing. The Bible says that Mount Sinai is in Midian, which
that's a variant reading, though.
What do you mean a variant?
Well, in my Bible, it says some manuscripts say, well, just a minute, I got to go back to it. That's in Galatians, where Paul is making an argument that basically the Arabs have come from Hagar, that line, but the Jews have come from the line of Isaac. So he's talking about it, and he's wanting to tell the Galatians, you're in the line that comes from Isaac. So Paul isn't trying to make any point about where Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai is. He's trying to make an issue theologically about who are we descended from. Now, what it says there, that there's a footnote that other ancient authorities read for Sinai is a mountain in Arabia, but that's not in at least the New Revised Standard Version, which is, in my view, mostly scholarly Bible. I would have to get out my New Testament to look to see what the variant readings are, but if that was the most confident reading for that thing, then that would have been put in print instead of just being a footnote. The other thing too that I was reflecting on, Midian is very close to the Sinai, and the Sinai, I think it's debatable about when was it a part of the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, and when did it become a part of Egypt?
Yeah.
So I think that's something to look into as well. But if we just leave it with Midian, and I'm fairly certain that the Moses character did go into Midian, meet Jethro, because he does have an encounter with Jethro again.
Yes, when he comes back.
But when Moses, like any sheep herder or whatever you're herding, they pick seasons of the year in which to graze their animals in a certain part of the country, and then when the weather changes, they go to another part. So it's possible then, in one of these migrations of getting the flock to another part, would have taken them to where we believe Mount Sinai is now. And then when the weather changes, it goes back into where Midian proper is now. So that's my view, and I'm happy to try to explain it some more. And I'm not saying that I know it all. Let me be clear about that. I don't know it all.
So again, this section of this cultural Bible talks about Mount Sinai, and the very beginning of it says the exact phrase Mount Sinai in the Bible doesn't necessarily identify the precise location. It goes through a different pros and cons of the different locations. And finally, the last part of it says, if only Saudi Arabia would let archaeologists into that part of the country, maybe they would actually find some evidence about this Jebel al-Lawz and see if that might have something. They did find some archaeological evidence, I believe, in the area what's currently near St. Catherine's. So I think it's an interesting debate. I think there's a lot of interesting, you can read the Bible different ways, and I think it's one of those things that we may never know. Maybe someday we might know, somebody might know. I'm not sure it'll be in our lifetime.
Well, when we get to heaven and we have to go to Old Testament class, then we'll get the notes.
Yeah, well, that's what we need. So,
Yeah, well, and I think we need to remember that names change along the way. Saudi Arabia wasn't Saudi Arabia until 1932. So
Right.
Keeping track of all these name changes over a couple of thousand years may be problematic.
and that's the problem with a printed atlas. When you have a printed atlas, I mean, it's not up to date with Africa and some other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I also have a wonderful atlas of the Bible that I have not been able to find yet because of my recent move. But I'll try to look for it this week, because that has some really good maps of the way things were then.
I have
and
that,
pushing it.
Michael.
Pardon?
I said I have that that I was bringing into when we were having class together. I was bringing it with me.
Oh, he's got one. Good.
Maybe,
Oh, well.
maybe he stole yours.
I'm not sure what it is right now, but I do have one, and if other people who've been to the Bible study remember us passing around the atlas. So,
Okay.
Yes, I have that too. So,
Check that one out, Scott.
But
I said check it out and see the landforms.
I will. So I do want to wrap up, get to wrapping up our session. I saved that for the last part of the discussion because I knew that would take the longest. So again, think about the parallels that Adam talks about, the parallel between the rituals in Exodus, between the Last Supper
In communion.
and communion, and how those parallels are with the Old Testament.
Mhm.
Scott,
Yeah,
one thing that he said in his book, and I sort of bolded it, that I thought was interesting, and I just wanted to read it, if I may.
go ahead.
It says, Yahweh has compassion, mercy, and love for his people. Nonetheless, his power and presence cannot be contained in the tame version of God that many of us believe in today. I thought that was an interesting statement,
Yes.
that Adam Hamilton made. It sort of brought me up a little bit.
Well, there was Frederick Herzog was at Duke when I was there. He was a German, I believe a German or Swiss theologian. I can't remember the classes he taught, but he did one say, either a sermon or a lecture, you can't put God in a box.
Yeah.
You can't, no matter how much you try, because putting God in a box means that we try to put God in our image rather than living out God's image for us.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts for the moment?
Well, I
Okay.
got lots of thoughts, but I'll keep them to myself.
Well, as far as the wrap up goes, we're at 5 till the hour. I do want to, if you haven't gone back and read the section, particularly read the discussion about each of the commandments that are in the book, I'd suggest you do that. There's also the study guides that that Adam publishes that are a good companion to the book, which is part of his sermon series.
And there's a good sermon series on the 10 Commandments at the Boulder City United Methodist Church happening.
That's
Starts
true.
today.
Read in.
It started last week.
Oh, last week, sorry, yeah.
Last week, and it's going on for, are you doing 10 weeks?
10 weeks. Mhm.
Okay, so,
Okay, that's good, because Adam in his sermon on the 10 Commandments said he originally proposed to his leadership council a 10-week sermon series on the 10 Commandments, and they nixed it.
Well, when Elaine and I, when we were in England for a pulpit exchange, we went to the Lincoln Cathedral for, there was a, well, they called him a evangelical, Anglican evangelical, who was doing a 10-week service on the 10, I think it was just called Just 10. And he started with number 10 and worked it down. So we got there in time to be able to hear number 1.
oh,
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
So he was starting at the end of the list.
Starting at the end of the list and going down. Yeah.
I guess if you have to end up with what's number 1, doing it that way as a countdown makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Next week, we'll do chapter 5, Lessons from the Wilderness. We'll learn all about tent making and
Oh, good.
and all those kind of things. I think that's where it comes up in the book. A lot more than you wanted to. There's a whole book on how you do that, right?
On 10 making.
All right, so we'll close out with this closing prayer. Let us pray. Oh God, once we were no people, but now we are your people. We give thanks for your law that leads us into the right relationship with you and with our neighbor. Go with us now as we seek to live more faithfully. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, who embodies the new covenant. Amen.
Amen.
So I was looking around for some music. I came up with looking for something that might have something about the 10 Commandments. There was a couple of different things that were interesting. I didn't like any of those. So I went back to find something that talked about the earlier part of the discussion, which was about bread from heaven. So did anybody remember what the line bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more, what that came from?
Feed me till I want no more.
Manna.
Guide me, O thou
Oh, great Jehovah.
Jehovah, 127.
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
Sing it together.
I've got 127 coming up.
Oh,
Thank you, Scott.
yeah. Thank you for today, Scott.
Yep. This was a good one. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Scott.
Guide me, O thou great Jehovah.
Bread of heaven, Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Amen. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.